We continue to follow developments in the rape allegations against three former San Diego State football players. One of those players is punter Matt Araiza, who was just released by the Buffalo Bills. We spoke to the young lady who is bringing the case against Araiza and the others. She told us she was at a party and separated from her friends, and that's when her interaction with Araiza began. We want to warn you, many of the details are disturbing.
That's when Matt came up to me and he started talking to me, flirting. He gave me a drink. I don't know what exactly was in the drink. And then he led me over to a side yard, and he asked me to perform oral sex on him, and then he turned me around and he had sex with me from behind. And then he took me inside.
That is the allegation of Jane Doe, who was 17 at the time of the alleged incident. She also says once inside, Araiza and the other two former players gang raped her in a bedroom. The case is currently under review by the DA's office. No criminal charges have been filed to date. And joining us now is criminal law attorney Carrie Armstrong, hired by Araiza as this investigation continues in the DA's office. And Carrie, we just heard from that young lady when we were just playing that. So let's just start with what she just said. And for sake of argument, let's just say if they had sex outside, at her age, isn't that statutory rape?
Yes, it definitely could be, but there's a defense in California. And in California, as long as the young lady is either 16 or 17 years old, and the man had what they call a reasonable good faith belief that she was 18 years old, it's a complete defense.
Did he have belief she was 18 then?
100%.
How
The young
so?
lady told him she was 18 that night. Her friends told everybody at the party she was 18 that night. And what I haven't told you yet is I just uncovered some evidence today, some additional evidence, which I won't go into details about, that definitely shows she was telling people at the party she was 18 that night.
18, and okay, and then she says he gave her a drink and took her inside.
Not true. Matt Araiza did not give her a drink that night. No one saw her drinking a drink that night at that particular house, and he never let her into a back bedroom whatsoever. In fact, he was never inside the house that night.
So if he's never inside the house, he is not in the bedroom at the time of the gang rape. Do you have proof of this?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure if there was a gang rape or not, but assuming for the sake of argument that there was, numerous witnesses have told my private investigator that Matt Araiza was not inside the house that night. Definitely not.
Could there be other defendants in this case?
Yes, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I've heard rumors that there were other men in the bedroom that night. I don't know who they are. I'm not sure if this young lady knows who they are. I don't know.
Also, when you look at the case, the house where this party happened is named as a defendant in this case. What does that mean?
I saw that. It looks like a corporation owns the house, and my best guess is that Dan Gillian, on behalf of the young lady, is probably going to sue the homeowner and try to get money out of a homeowner's policy. That's my best guess.
And also when we talk about possible payout, even a civil judgment against Araiza, he's cut from the Bills now, but with a civil judgment, could that affect him in the future, and no matter what he does, but even if he got back into the NFL?
Yes, it could. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that he loses the civil lawsuit, which I don't think would happen, but let's say that he did. Then even if he doesn't have the money to pay it now, there would always be a judgment against him in the future. And if he got back in the NFL, then they could attach or garnish his wages and get the money that way.
You're a criminal attorney. This went to San Diego PD first. San Diego State has said that PD asked them to pause their school investigation until SDPD finished theirs. Why would they do that?
Yes, well, San Diego State, it's my understanding, they do have a police force, but they don't have detectives who are near as experienced as the San Diego Police Department detectives. And also, the alleged incident occurred off campus. So I think for those two reasons, that's why SDPD took over and told San Diego State just to essentially back off, at least until we finish our investigation.
There has been a lot of criticism, also Jane Doe's attorney, toward San Diego State. Do you see any culpability here?
Not that I've seen. I mean, I know that he's said that he thinks San Diego State is liable to some degree. I haven't seen it. I think San Diego State has done everything that they've been asked to do by the San Diego Police Department, and I don't think there's any liability on their part whatsoever.
Have there been any discussions of a settlement by Araiza himself or his family
Well, Dan Gillian first contacted my client via Instagram about 5 weeks ago. I then stepped in to let Mr. Gillian know that I was Matt Araiza's attorney. We had some pretty antagonistic texts back and forth, but I never ever tried to settle this case on behalf of Mr. Araiza. And any allegations that I did are just blatant untruths.
Because on Twitter, didn't he tweet that you tried to settle it?
He did tweet that. All I did was I reached out on behalf of my client's parents because out of curiosity, they wanted to know what the number was, what the young lady wanted as far as a settlement. But it wasn't an attempt to try to settle. I never offered any cash to Dan Gillian or anything like that.
And when did the DA actually get this case? And from that, then how long generally, just in criminal investigations, do you think it may be before a decision is made?
It's my understanding that the detective who I've been in contact with delivered the case, in other words, the police reports and things like that, about a week and a half ago to the DA's office. I do know which DA has it. We've been communicating. I definitely don't want to speak for her as to when she'll make a decision, but my best guess is it'll be in the next month, maybe 2 months at the very latest.
Are they talking with you in terms of when you talk about the witnesses that you've spoken to and things like that? Does that all go in to this decision, or do you have communication with this?
Yes, and I usually don't do that on a case, but on this particular case, I have given the DA's office quite a bit of information that my private investigator has uncovered, and I'm hopeful that'll be enough to convince them not to file charges against him.
All right, Kerry Armstrong, we appreciate you discussing the case in your time today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.